Welcome to Agency Acquisitions and Exits, where we dive into the real stories behind buying, selling, and scaling agencies. I'm your host, Peter Lang, and today I'm joined by Lionel Johnston. He did what all of you want to do. He's an accidental agency owner who completed his first acquisition, a small but strategic deal that doubled his client base and transformed the way he thinks about growth. Lionel's story is a perfect example of how you, as a small agency, can go out and acquire other small agencies to create outsized impact and returns. He's going to share lessons he learned along the way and the challenges he faced and how he's thinking about future growth through acquisitions. So let's dive in. Lionel, thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Peter. Looking forward to this.
Now, help us see ourselves in you. Tell us how you got started in marketing and how you built this agency.
Yeah, good question here. I'll start off, and if it's okay, I'll go way back. Actually, just coming out of university, I had planned on going down the criminology path and police work, and I happened to got a part-time sales job selling Cutco cutlery. Actually, I don't know if you're familiar with Cutco, but I was a 21-year-old single guy that didn't cook a lot and saw this amazing product and did quite well at it, and ended up advancing and opening my own business the following summer and moved to Thunder Bay and then ultimately to London, Ontario, and stayed with the company for about 10 years. And still I'm in touch with lots of people from that chapter of my life. But that was really my first introduction to sales and business. And when I first heard about it being a sales job, the first vision I had was Herb Tarlick from WKRP, if you remember him. So I wasn't, interested, but then just something about it attracted me and really enjoyed it. But that was, really my first look at the entrepreneurial world and personal development and running a business.
And that's a big departure.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going crim and then you go
completely different. Yeah.
Yeah, you went to the exact opposite of public service.
Yeah. But there's so many people there, right? They're accidental business owners. And, that was really my situation. I was 22 years old. I'd never even thought about running a business and opened my own office in Thunder Bay and moved to a town I'd never been to before and knew nobody. Yeah, I haven't thought about that in a while, but it was, that was really my first venture with that. So, but most of my career I spent in actually sales and business development. And then I had several years in a corporate world, and thankfully I've gotten back to my entrepreneurial roots, in the last 7 or 8 years, and started consulting with leaving the corporate world, and have recently acquired a second business, which is what we're going to be spending some time on today.
Right. So going from sales to agency, I mean, is actually quite a common storyline for a lot of people. But was that your intention? Because when you go from general consulting and adding value and being a professional service independent, what made you think it's okay, an agency? What made you think that's where you're at now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And actually, I don't know if this was a deficit or not, but when I was running, the agency in the early days, and even now, I've never worked for an agency before. So I actually, wouldn't necessarily know how companies have grown and obvious roles to start off with. And even when I started consulting, with exception of what I was doing in my corporate job. So my first client, actually, we're working with them now, and this is 7 years later, but I started out with them for free. And I just said to Dan, hey, let me help you out. I did want to find out what I'm good at, where I need help, what work I don't enjoy doing. And even right from the beginning, I had always had people helping me out. So I wasn't trying to be like a one-person show. And that's very common, right? A technician, all of a sudden they're a business owner. So I always knew from the beginning I needed support, but I wasn't sure where my spot was in the marketplace, right? Like, what did these business owners actually need? And one early on lesson was I worked with a small, like a family owned HVAC company. And then I also had my first paid contract was with an infamous fashion mogul. And it was a huge company. And this is the closest person I knew at the time, closest to being a billionaire. And I was working with both of them, and they both had the exact same problem. So it was really interesting just seeing a big company and a small family business. And I said, okay, hey, this is somewhere where I can help. And I actually ran a digital marketing seminar. I ran 5, but this first one, it was at a local co-working center or co-working office. And I did a 2-hour presentation on digital marketing. And then there was 12 or 16 people there, and 8 people stuck around for another 2 hours after that, asking questions. And after that, I was like, holy, like, we see it every day. And I was thinking like, yeah, I think I know a good amount about this stuff. But then I'm like, I just was peppered for 4 hours and was able to help these people out. Right. So that was actually one thing that really gave me a lot of confidence getting back into the business world, that, hey, I actually am very good at this and I know a lot about, and most importantly, I know I can help a lot of people with this knowledge. So that was really how I got started, with that. Hopefully that answers your question, or at least touches
I
on it.
mean, that's the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
The barrier to entry to starting a service business is kind of low.
Yeah.
And as you're right, like a lot of the technicians turn into accidental business owners or agency owners.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fact that, though, you have this sales background, very helpful. The fact that you understand marketing, digital marketing, and how it could be useful to these businesses, and these businesses are looking to you as a source of information, but also potentially of service. I mean, now you create a business. So get us up to speed. When did you start formally? When do you think like you became an agency? And then let's give everybody what they came for. When did you
Yeah.
close your first acquisition that we can unpack? So how much time's there?
Yeah, good question. So it would have been late 2018 when I was doing this consulting outside of my corporate job. And that was actually managing corporate marketing for a very large and successful trucking company. And I did international marketing for Travel Manitoba before that. So it was actually promoting tourists coming to Canada and to Manitoba specifically. So that was, where I'd learned more about, getting deeper into marketing. But yeah, so I had this one, friend and client who was helping for no dollars. And then that turned into a paid opportunity. And then there was another gentleman that I knew in Winnipeg that I was speaking to, and I stopped by his shop. We were just chatting. And then, I saw some opportunities and I said, hey, can I help you with this? I'll get the strategy. We can tweak some ads. And it was actually 3 or 4 months in. And Jason, the CEO of this company, said, Lionel, how did we even get here? Right. Like, it never felt like it was a selling environment or that I was trying to pitch him on my services. Really, it was just, two professionals trying to help each other out, and an opportunity came about and we went from there. And that was, a paid client that we worked with for many years. The first several years, I purposely kept quite small. Like there was myself and then 3 or 4 subcontractors. And then within about 2 years, Alex came on our team, who was our first, or actually a second employee, but first full time. So I was keeping it fairly small, and I was trying to actually position myself almost like an anti-agency, because I actually would position myself and our team more as a fractional CMO rather than a traditional agency. Like we're here to sell Facebook ads or SEO or Google ads or websites, because I found everyone had a little bit different needs. And we actually partnered with a lot of other digital marketing agencies. And in one example, we did several projects with them, but they're excellent at branding and building websites, but they didn't know how to put that asset to work and actually get leads out of it. So in that case, even though we're both, in marketing, we were a good fit where they could do the branding and build a beautiful website, but then we would get it to actually produce leads, right? So that was why, we really focus on that fractional CMO role. And I'm still, positioning our main company as that, because I really don't, again, we're not here to sell just deliverables or services. It's really to find out what are your needs for your business in this moment in time. And I was actually just speaking with a roofing contractor before this on one of our rental properties. So he's going to do a bunch of work, but they need help on marketing. And so I don't have to say, we can only help you on SEO or this. And he was asking me about some print materials, and a traditional marketing agency wouldn't look at that. But if they have a local print like coupon magazine that's working really well, who am I to tell them not to do that, and they should do digital marketing? So we're really, again, looking at that as a partnership, and hey, how can we help this business out but back to your question though, we were purposely small for several years, but then I soon realized, well, if I don't want to be touching every single part of this business, I can't keep running the business like it is. Like we had good people, but still, if I was gone or got hit by the proverbial bus, the business wouldn't continue. So that was really the turning point to say, well, yes, if I do want to continue to serve people effectively, and I don't want to be touching everything. We need to change and we need to grow, and reluctantly got me more into having like that agency, hat on. And we still try and act differently than a traditional agency, but we are further down that path, and now look and feel a lot more like a standard agency. So.
And then you did an acquisition. So you've been resisting becoming an agency, and then it's washed over you, Lionel. It's overcome you. And then now you're an agency person because you're looking at deals too. So it's kind of like you're giving up, Lionel. There's no more fighting. You are an agency now, and you're taking it up a notch. So you have you still keep it small. You keep yourself in a strategic position, is what I hear you saying, which allows you the ability to leverage partners and get things done. How did you figure out acquisition could potentially work for you? And then how did you find this company that you ultimately acquired?
Yeah, good question. So, start even when going back to when the company started, how it was set up and what my vision was my end all be all wasn't necessarily to have this one marketing company and just run that until I can't run it anymore. It was a means to an end. And one of the nice things, with a marketing agency is we're able to have that, consistent cash flow. And, once we acquire that client and we deliver value, we're able to have them for a long time. So there isn't necessarily a lot of, there is value to, when selling a marketing agency, of course, was different than other businesses where they have physical assets that, that may gain value. So I realized that, the value that the marketing agency really could play is that it helps fund the other, like outside of funding our lifestyle, it helps fund our other business interests, which could be, expanding our real estate portfolio, which we've done. We have an Airstream trailer we use as a trailer rental. So different things. And again, the agency has helped do that, but it's also helped fund, this other acquisition. And I would definitely expect, more, to be able to come as well. So anyway, that was how I had looked at it initially. And with looking at the rental properties, it was very similar to the business. Just I knew what I wanted to accomplish, and I see growth, and I do like to find opportunities, bring people together, bring deals together. One of my weaknesses is, doing the same thing over and over again and being super detailed. That is like my kryptonite. But, in terms of meeting people, bringing opportunities to fruition, and then looking for the next ones is something that, I feel is definitely a core strength. And we did that on real estate side. And then I was interested in doing it on the business side. And I was open to a business acquisition, but actually what happened in this specific case, it was really a perfect situation for both companies. We met through a marketing agency Facebook group, actually, and they had commented that they were looking at exiting. And the business owner of the marketing firm that we purchased is an entrepreneur, and they have a business group with several partners, and they own a number of businesses, and they own the marketing agency by accident, almost like it was really there to support their businesses. But they were looking at expanding their other businesses. And actually one of the business they own is in the corporate awards and trophy recognition space. And they were just buying another really big business. So they were really growing a lot. And the marketing business was, a bit of a, I don't know if it was an afterthought, but it sort of got in the way. They weren't able to give the attention that they wanted. So it was really good. Once we started having discussions, we found out that, my philosophies very much aligned with the seller's philosophies, just in terms of, how we want to treat people, how we want to build a business, how we treat clients, all those sorts of things. So we got along really right from that initial phone call. And there was someone already further along in the process to buy the business. So we just kept in contact, and then that opportunity fell through at the last moment, and we picked up again and had some more discussions. But yeah, just sort of organically grew from there. And where it was, again, a really good fit, as I just mentioned, is they wanted to free themselves from the marketing company and get some capital from that to invest in growth, but also not have the responsibility for it. Also, they knew that there was a lot of opportunity for the marketing company, but their time was, needed elsewhere. So they weren't able to support, the couple staff that were there. And there's two super talented people. I'm really excited. That's actually the most exciting thing about this acquisition, is being able to have both Lauren and Ivy joining our team, because they're both phenomenal to work with. But anyway, so that was the challenge from the seller's perspective, is they wanted to grow and they didn't want to focus on this agency, and they couldn't support their team as much as they wanted. So it was an opportunity for us to be able to come in, and the staff with this new company filled holes in my core business. So that was really good. And actually the initial gains happened more on the core business in terms of like client acquisition and revenue expansion. That happened with my initial, like my core business first. And now the other business is growing more too. But then our team was able to help support the staff over there. So they weren't just two people plus a couple subcontractors against the world. And then part of the deal was we signed agreements to service two of the sellers' businesses.
Of
So
course,
that,
because they were
again, it
using
was,
that
yeah,
agency still. They just couldn't
exactly.
manage it anymore.
Exactly. And that was why they were very particular, over who they sold to, because they weren't just trying to sell it for as much as they could and be done with it. In an ideal situation, they wanted to have the buyer come in, bring new ideas, new resources, more capabilities, and help them now that they're focused on their business, but come in and bring those new ideas to help them grow, their core businesses.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and it's worked out really well.
Absolutely
Like,
wonderful.
it's been awesome for our team, great for the, again, the staff with Toto, and then really good for the seller as well. So yeah, that
So what I
was
hear you
the
saying
perfect
is
situation.
this portfolio of businesses, one of which was a marketing agency that was servicing the portfolio or helping the
Yeah,
other businesses.
that's
That
right.
was its intention. They were trying to offload it because, hey, we got so much going on. And the term would be divestiture. So they're trying to divest the asset in a way that could create some value in return for that. And the expectation is, hey, whoa, we still need the help. So if we're
Yeah,
going to sell it, let's sell it to someone who we're confident can still help us after we sell it.
exactly. Yeah.
And therefore the right fit there. And then you have a small team and you're like, well, there's some pieces that I need. And I get client revenue from this. So I get people plus revenue and I'm a good fit. So help me understand, walk me through it. Facebook group or social media post to agencies.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm
Yeah.
looking to potentially find a home for this business. You hop on, there's an offer. You are second in line. He goes away, that falls through, shows back up on your plate. Emails you and you're like, great, it's on again. How long did it take before you presented terms? How much time did you invest?
It was actually quite fast. The one advantage, one thing that was actually nice with the seller as well, because we knew that they wanted us to be involved, and things can always go sideways, and you don't always, you can't ever know who you're working with and 100% trust them, just like they couldn't 100% trust me as well. But there was a tight relationship, so we had pretty good trust right from the get-go, just due to how the relationship was set up. But I'd have to look back, but we ended up closing on October 1st. Originally it was supposed to be September 1st, but that was really the only delay. I'd have to look back at when we got back to being hot and heavy, but it would have been early August or maybe even mid-August. Like, it happened quite fast, actually. There were some things to tie up after the closing, that the lawyers dealt with, but it wasn't a long time. Like, once we got back into things and the other deal was long gone, things happened quite fast. And actually, part of the reason was because we already had these discussions a prior year, and had that relationship built and had already shared information back and forth. So, but yeah, it was quite fast.
In this kind of deal, how did you go about structuring a deal? Because they obviously had some expectation. There was someone ahead of you. And then you could foresee an opportunity where maybe the people don't find a good home, or there's some uncertainty when it's this small. So how'd you go about traversing that dialogue?
Yeah, well, and I would assume it's okay to share this, but what part of the reason why the past deal had blown up at the last second was the difference in opinion between a share sale and an asset sale, right? And, every business owner wants to sell their business as a share sale. Everyone wants to buy it as an asset. There's tax implications, but this prior group, wanted the asset sale. And then the very last minute, their lawyer said, well, if we go through this, none of the contracts transfer over. And the seller was like, well, no kidding. We told you that at the beginning of this. Like, that was obvious. That shouldn't, but for whatever reason, again, that was where that fell apart. So we did structure. And the only reason I'm saying that is because that's relevant to how we structured things. So we did agree to doing a share sale. So, none of our clients, need to know that ownership has changed. Like, the people they deal with are the same. There's just more resources behind them, to be able to service them. And then we also had signed these 6-month agreements to service the sellers' businesses. And then we did the rest. We did the actual financial aspect through seller financing. So I put a deposit down, and then there was some funds that had to be reconciled, some expenses like hitting the seller's credit card. So, that was paid for, of course, because they were now my expenses. And then we basically just worked out the remaining amount outside of the down payment over 24 months. So we're 3 months into that now, again, now being March, and we got access in October. Yeah. So now basically our job is just to continue paying that monthly amount. And actually the nice thing is the business is at a point where outside of the initial down payment, the business is able to support the payments that I'm sending to the seller every month.
That's great.
So that's worked out well. Yeah.
The business can and should be able to cash flow its obligation. And that's typical in like acquisitions in general, but also in cash flow and business acquisitions.
Yeah.
What did you learn? What were you surprised about? Because, I mean, nothing in your background screams a corporate business development financial guy.
Yeah.
So as you're going through it, like what was some of the lessons you learned? What were some of the things that you were surprised about? What were some of the key takeaways?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that was surprising is for such a small deal, the legal fees that were paid by both was pretty substantial. And I told my lawyer several times, like, hey, I'm not trying to buy Amazon here. Like, what's going on? Like we're talking, a company with two full-time employees and 15, 16 clients. Like, anyway, but the legal fees were more than my initial down payment in the business. It is what it is. And the reality is you buy a company with 15 or 1,500 clients, the legal fees really probably aren't that different. So as a percentage, the legal fees really seemed obscene, but I get it. And they were reasonable. But again, that was maybe a little bit of a surprise. I knew what they should have been. There were a couple of glitches that they were higher than I had expected, but it is what it is. And then the other challenge, really, actually, the seller was awesome throughout the whole process. They were very good at communicating, and even there was some things where, like when we first got access, this seller wasn't aware there was actually two U.S. So I'm in Canada, but two U.S. based clients that had canceled, but the owners didn't know yet because, again, they weren't actively involved. So, that was sort of a short-term hit from a cash flow perspective, but right away they adjusted the price, everything was fine, and we worked it out. So both of our teams handled those sort of challenges quite well there. And then the other challenge, which again, there's always going to be things coming up, but, we had some disruption to how accounting is working. So we actually had a group of clients that were way behind on their payments, which wasn't common. And it was almost a month's worth of revenue, which is how much we had in AR. So that wasn't great right out of the gates, but that was resolved by mid-December. And everything's really been smooth sailing since then. And I know we chatted briefly the other day, and when we were chatting, a lead came in. That client has now come on and they've paid, and so now the business is doing really well and growing, and we've got really good, capable people running it. So.
Do you think it helped having what sounds like a sophisticated seller?
Definitely. Yeah. If I were in his role dealing with someone like me, there would have been some more challenges there. But thankfully, yeah, they had purchased several businesses and were running multiple businesses and were quite savvy and in terms of what the lawyers are going to be expecting. So that was helpful. I wouldn't recommend that a buyer relies too heavily on the seller, for advice through things. But again, it was a unique situation where we had a really good relationship, and they really helped me along. And even actually advice that we had talked about is the seller had talked about the direction to their lawyer as well, saying, yes, the lawyers, we get it. Your job is to reduce our risk. But at the same time, we have to have like a sanity check here, right? We aren't buying Amazon. We don't have thousands of clients. We don't have all of these potential legal hurdle like things that are just going to pop up out of nowhere, virtually unheard of, to have like a client sue a marketing agency or something. Again, especially something so small. Advice like that was helpful because then I was able to say to our lawyers, yes, we can do this, but like this additional thousands of dollars is going to eliminate this one risk, but it's very extremely unlikely. So those are some examples of the types of things that we were able to work through together, which was, helpful.
What did your counsel say when your position was, hey, the opportunity here is a stock purchase. We're going to buy the company because we don't have assignable contracts, and the previous buyer lost this deal because they weren't able to get there. That's where you started from. Were they okay with it, or how much did they double tap the emphasis of legal due diligence and exploring liabilities?
Yeah, good question. There actually wasn't a lot of discussion around the asset sale versus share sale, because that actually happened with the law firm the prior year when we were having some initial discussion. So when we got hot and heavy, it was more like, this is what we're doing. We're doing a share sale, and this is how we're going to structure. There'll be seller financing, and these are the conditions. We're going to have these contracts to service the seller's businesses. So there wasn't really too much around should you do a share sale or not, but the complexities came in. Even though these are very small businesses, based in Winnipeg, Manitoba. The business is based in Vancouver, BC. So we have different provincial regulations, and labor laws are different. Legal laws are a little bit different. So that also added a little bit to the legal bill, because we had to do extra diligence and hire BC companies to do the BC work, that sort of things.
Did you have to build any indemnification, anything that you thought was protection for unknowns, or because you were trying to keep this within a realm of reality, like small threats, not big business? Is there anything that you had to approach it to mitigate that?
Yeah, a good question. There was some of that, but a lot of that was mitigated due to the relationship that we had, or how it was structured. And I realized a lot of business sellers probably don't want to do the seller financing. They'd rather a lump sum and wipe their hands of it. But the reality in terms of reducing the risk is, if I got the keys and got in there and something was completely different, I've made the down payment, right? So really it was in the seller's best interest to make sure everything was very clean and transparent. Actually, I texted the seller a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking about some of the cash flow challenges at the beginning with, some clients behind. As soon as that was all settled, receiving the cash from all of our clients at this new business is much cleaner than my core business. And so I reached out and I said that, and I said, hey, kudos to you. And I hope this comes across as a compliment, because I mean it that way. Working with your, now they're ours, but your clients, and collecting the funds is super easy, and we don't have people late, and it was, again, a big compliment to how they run their business.
Yeah, you can't get stuck in or working on the business if you are never in it because you bought it.
Yeah.
How different is the business from the one that you were operating and you started? So you acquired one, you're not in it because you weren't there from the beginning, and then the one you started and were in from the beginning. How different is it? And then what other things have been aha moments from that?
Yeah, that's a great topic. And this has been a big learning opportunity for me specifically. When a couple things, but I'll touch on. One is, when I first had access to the books, that company only offers SEO and Google Ads, and they had 2 full-time staff plus some contractors. And then our business operates more full-time, and we have way more staff. Our overhead is significantly higher, and we are really fully immersed in our clients' business. So if leads go down, it must be our fault. We did something wrong. And it's just, the economy or who knows what, right? There's all reasons why leads increase and decrease. So when I looked at them, I'm like, okay, I can see what they're doing in revenue, and they only have 2 people, and see how many clients. I'm like, well, that's pretty impressive. Yes, they could offer more services, but they're doing 2 really well. And it's super easy. This, as I was just commenting a couple minutes ago, we had a lead come in from a Google ad. This is for a mental health practice. A lead came in from a Google ad. They booked a meeting the next day. 3 days later, the deal was done, and we had a new client. So again, that was pretty easy. And it was cool. I wasn't involved at all. I knew it was happening. But again, Lauren on our team took full ownership of that whole process. So that was a good insight to go, yes, they're only doing 2 services. We're doing all this. And I may think, it's better to do full service. But I'm like, there's something to this. right? It's much less work. Not that we're trying to avoid work, but it's much simpler to deliver. Their clients have stayed for years. If there's a little hiccup, like people don't freak out, they don't jump ship. So there's a lot of things I saw like, hey, these guys have it figured out. And there's things that we could do a lot better in our core business. And that was, definitely one of the takeaways there. Also, the situation of this new client just coming on, again, I set up all the marketing so the leads would come in, but I don't have to touch it. But I was just speaking with you about this roofer I spoke to today. Well, in order for my core business to land, well, now I need to have a discovery call with a guy, find out more about his business, have a strategic consult, get a proposal in front of him, get payment, get him on board, and that's all on me. Right. So that also has been very enlightening to say, well, I like this a lot better. I like to work at a high level and help support these people, from above. And I don't mean that I'm above them, but like helping with the sales and marketing. So all our account manager needs to do is get an email. Oh, I've got a new meeting booked. They do some due diligence. They hop on a call and sell the client. Right. So I like that much better. And related to this topic is when I looked at the two businesses, I looked at my core business through the lens of a potential buyer. And the company that we bought, the owner wasn't actively involved. Now, there was some downside to that, but the good thing is the business existed without the owner. Where my core business, I'm fully involved in everything, unfortunately. So just looking in simple terms at the actual business value, that other business was significantly more valuable because of that. So that also was a learning for me. It wasn't a surprise, but it was good to be able to see it in practice. And I didn't buy the second business so I could be as busy as I am with my core business now in two businesses. So again, the goal is to be able to buy that business and likely other ones. So I actually have the resources and expert people that I can now pull myself out and again, work at that high level with relationships, business structure, potential acquisitions, things like that. And then let our experts be experts, at their area of the business. So those would be a couple of the initial observations I've had, looking at the
Those are life-changing observations.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Those are mergers and acquisitions can solve all business challenges. And one of the ways to think about it is succession. How do you get yourself out of a business that you've entangled yourself into?
Exactly.
And it's very hard. It's absolutely a challenge, especially if you've never been in other agencies before. Lionel, you're an accidental agency owner. So it's not like you're executing a playbook that you've copied from some other professional experience over the years. And so you've built this thing to be a personification of a thing that stimulates you, right? When we say your upmarket contribution to businesses, Lionel, well, it's because that's more fun. Being the CMO, being the strategist, helping them make good decisions about how to grow and what to invest in is more impactful than just commoditizing labor and delivery. Yet, if you wanted to get out of the business you created where you're the strategic, you're the new business development, you're the head or the creative person leading it, you just can go buy another small agency and you're not even in it. Mm-hmm. And then if you exercise this activity more than once, how long before the things you acquire are bigger than your core business, Lionel?
Yeah. Yeah, well, not too long. Yeah, and do this a couple more times. Yeah, we're in a very different situation. And if I could add two comments where I have been purposeful relating to what you just said, and one is within the core business, and I realize that I just said I'm very involved, and we're looking to change that. But when Alex had joined our team, so she's our account manager and super valuable. And she had reached out when she was in finishing business school, and now again one of our longest standing employees. But it was the beginning of COVID, and we actually lived in the same city at the time. We don't anymore, but we hadn't met for at least 11 or 12 months, if not longer. And I was purposeful on that. Not that I didn't want, like, we talked every day, but I was challenging myself to build a business where we didn't have to be in the same location. So and it worked really well for her as well. But that was one way that I was able to challenge myself to make sure, well, yes, unfortunately, I'm super involved, but at least we don't have to be physical with all of our clients. And in hindsight, that worked out really well. And similarly with this new business acquisition, I haven't met any clients at all. I don't know any of their first names. We haven't been on calls together. I haven't been in a project management meeting with the team at all. So I'm, even though again it was a small acquisition, a smaller deal, and when I say small, I'm talking in comparison to a lot of the deals that you feature, through your business, those are much larger. But I've used it to be very purposeful, that it's forcing me to be more entrepreneurial, and that even though I am very involved in the sales and marketing, like getting the system set up, my goal is not to be doing that on an ongoing basis, and simply to do that so we can get more people in to take over, because they'll be better at those things than I am.
Well, Lionel, you don't know this, but you are the use case of programmatic. So when McKinsey did
Okay.
their research to write the strategy beyond the hockey stick, and it was following programmatic M&A, programmatic buyers, so 3 to 4 businesses a year. One of the most useful takeaways from that research was small deals done more frequently have significant impact on businesses, more than the 1 or 2 big deals. And it's for what you just described, right? It's what it unlocks. It doesn't just unlock the thing that you got, it transforms your mindset around how to grow the business and evaluate your own business moving forward. And it's just the fastest way to see behind the veil of other companies, to think, okay, what are the things I don't know that they do well that I could then potentially insert into mine? So you've done, and I'll say this as a critique to the world and then a compliment to you, you've done what a lot of people aspirationally want to do. Again, the first deal shouldn't be the kind that can sink the ship, and you did a wonderful
Right.
deal that proved the thesis that this is a productive thing for you to continue to execute. And
yeah, definitely.
when we took our prep call, you were at an agency event. So Lionel,
I was, yeah.
you saw that first announcement in a Facebook group with other agency owners. What was the likelihood at other agency events you're running into people who potentially are at the end of the journey and are looking to sell?
Well, funny enough, and I don't want to share any specific details, but there was an opportunity that came up actually on this trip where I was like, this situation would be a perfect fit. And again, it's one of those things, like through our rentals and, all the things that I've been involved with, it's not about how does, Lionel benefit and everyone else loses. It's, just like this acquisition, it was a win for everybody. And so this business had come up, and I said, like, this would be the perfect opportunity to help reduce stress on this other business, bring in their expertise, help ramp up what we have, and together, we would all be stronger. And it was just part of discussions. It was like, okay, this is an obvious opportunity here. So, with this first one, under my belt and going through the process, it makes it much easier to be able to see those other opportunities and also envision, okay, well, I can do this and do this, or I need to do this first. But just having clarity on how to bring these deals together, it's something I enjoy doing, but I feel I've gotten a lot better with that going through this process as well.
Take us 3 years into the future. Where do you think you'll be compared to where you are now?
Well, I still see having the eye to the future and looking for opportunities and ways to be able to, bring people and businesses together. It's just something, again, that I really enjoy. I do see having a substantial business or businesses, but that I'm not actively involved in, because I do recognize I have there are a lot of things I think I'm pretty darn good at, but I recognize that there's lots of things that I'm not great at, and there's lots of people that love to do the things that I don't enjoy doing, and they do it way better. So I don't know, and I've shared this with my team right now between the two companies. Like, I don't know what exactly it looks like right now. Like, I do know, and we spoke about this briefly, one bigger company has much more economic value in terms of selling than 2 or 3 or 4 smaller ones. So that would probably make sense to have things merged. But who knows what the future looks like. But I do definitely see continuing to do more acquisitions like this. Like, our two businesses right now, they actually are focusing on 2 different niches. So, they each could have a little bit different path, where maybe they both are growing, and then they're both, large entities moving forward. So I don't have a crystal ball and don't exactly know what it looks like, but one of the things that I like to do is I am looking down the road, but also looking at what I'm doing right now and just, step by step. And then all of a sudden, things get done. And I'll share a quick example of that. I've always thought about having a holding company and the benefit to that with our rental properties. And I was like, oh, one day, we'll be in a position where we'll need to have a holding company, and I ended up creating the holding company to buy the second business. But I was just busy one day and going back and forth chatting with my lawyer, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, I just set up a holding company, but it was something I had built up in my mind for years, like this big event and fireworks and so on about having, say, a holding company, and it just happened. It's one of those things, right? Things seem bigger before you've done them, and once you've done it, you're like, okay, well, that was actually easy, and you move on, to the next thing. So a long-winded answer to your question. I know I didn't directly answer it, but I would definitely see being able to continue down this path, and not just for my benefit, but I would really love to be able to help my people come along for the ride and have them be involved in the companies, and even owning parts of the company and companies, and playing a role in these future deals to come. So I definitely, would like to help out anyone I can as I'm following my own path here.
So this is the big question, but what's one thing you'd want the agency owner who's listening to this to take away from this experience?
Well, what I would say is, given the fact that I wasn't actively promoting that I was looking to buy a business, we actually have a client, and it was super smart, and I'll send you the link to his profile, but he actually has a dedicated website with his name, and it talks about who he is, the businesses he ran, exactly what type of business he's looking to buy, why you should consider selling to him. Like it's really well done. It's great. And he did exactly that. So he actually bought a business exactly, what he was looking for. But the reason I bring that up is that wasn't how I had positioned myself, but I was open to the opportunity and had my feelers out and was just ready for, we don't always want to wait for an opportunity to come along, but when it came along, I was able to recognize it quick and jump at it. So I guess what I would say is, to be open to those opportunities, but also, look at what are things that are easy tuck-ins that can help out your business go to the next level. So an example of that would be, let's say we want to add video production to our list of services. I can hire a videographer and buy equipment, or I could go and find someone that's running a 2 or 3 or 4 person, YouTube video and advertising company that they're sort of, struggling or at the end of the road or ready to exit, and just work out a deal to buy that company and bring one or all of them along and fold them in, right? So there's things like that, and that's actually pretty easy to envision. And it's much easier in thinking, okay, I'm going to have a business plan, I'm going to have a corporate lawyer, we're going to do this and all this due diligence, where really it's just like, hey, I met this guy that he would love to exit his business. He's got great staff, and they've got 25 clients that they're already doing video work for, and the niches overlap with who we're going after. Like that would be a great fit. So if anyone's watching this, you're in that situation, please reach out. So that would be my tip, is just, to be on the lookout for those types of opportunities, because if the deal is right, you'll find a way to make it work. And that was what me and the seller did in this case. And I would expect that in the future as well.
Wonderful. Lionel, this has been an incredible discussion. It's amazing how this type of narrative, this type of opportunity isn't that well known. No one teaches this in entrepreneurship.
No, not at all.
It's not something that comes to us through all this hustle culture of scrappy sales, building agencies. I mean, your story is proof that small deals, small acquisitions can have a massive impact, not just in your mindset, but in your trajectory for yourself, your business. And you bought what you perceived as a big thing, holding company, building a portfolio of investments, and you brought it down to earth and go, oh, it's actually not, that's doable. That's workable. Yeah. And the fact that you came on and shared that with everyone who's listening to this, Lionel, I deeply appreciate it, because it's so impactful for people to realize that this is available to them. And there's millions of small businesses. And if you're an agency or something that looks like an agency, professional services, they're all over the place, ranging from 2 to 10 people shops.
Yeah.
And they all have a similar journey. And so the last thing we want is to make sure that all of these opportunities are made aware that it is achievable. You can do it. And Lionel, again, thank you for coming on and sharing your story. It's very meaningful and I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's been my pleasure, and I really appreciate this opportunity, and I really appreciate your enthusiasm for my own story, right? And you were able to see it, from all of the, perception, or all of the work you do with all these other companies. And in our very first discussion, you had commented like, you may not know this yet, but you are much closer to where you're going than you may think right now. And that was something that really stuck. And I'm excited about the future, and I appreciate you helping me see that even more clearly. I'm looking forward to it.
Lionel, if someone wants to reach out to you, where's the best place for them to do it?
They could reach me through LinkedIn, so Lionel Johnston there, or my core agency is farmersmarketing.ca. That would be a good spot.
Wonderful. I appreciate you, Lionel. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Lionel, for joining us on today's episode, and thank you for listening to Agency Acquisitions and Exits. You can find us on Spotify and YouTube. Give us a follow. We post stories from industry experts about how they sold or acquired other businesses to grow. If you or someone you know should be on the show to talk about an agency story, look for our email in the comments. We'd love to talk to you. As always, thank you for listening. We appreciate you. Stay safe.